In this chapter, I want to talk about the POP network. POP network or particle network in Houdini is a little change respect the previous version. Inside Houdini, two kinds of POP network. We can see now we create geometry. We can delete the file nodes. Inside the geometry, and I call, for example, particles, VOPs, particles, okay? Inside the geometry, I can create with the tab the POP, and I find the POP network and POP network alt. What's the difference? POP network and POP network alt. I see the node is a few difference for the symbol, for the icon, and this is the icon of the DOP network, the dynamic network, because inside Houdini the particles is the part of the dynamic sector, and the POP network is all this kind of particles. There is another node, is particles inside Houdini, but is a more difference. This is like basic system, like super spray, like blizzard, like emitter, basic emitter for particles. And I can also delete this. Inside the POP network, if I jump inside, I don't find nothing, because I need to create, for example, the POP source or the source, and I create the source. I need to edit the force. I create the color and blah blah, and I create the structure for my particle system. Inside the POP network, if I jump inside, I find the network with the operator. The node is create one system, is before I create this system. I have the output. Output is node you can find in all dynamic sector, and I find the POP solver, and I find the source and the POP object. Now we can see what's happened. We can delete the old POP network and jump inside the POP network, the new POP network. What's another great advantage of this kind of system? Also, with the POP solver, we can use the cache of my particles without create the cache node. You see, also my line is blue. Every time I use the dynamic inside Houdini, I have the blue line for dynamic for create the cache. Okay, and I can come back. I can change the simulation. Also, if I go here, particles, and for example create the locator in some old version of Houdini is create the old POP network, but a new version of Houdini, if I click and for example create here, I see create the locator. The locator is the one point, is like null object, but is one point where is burning my system. I see I have the system with the new kind, with the POP solver. If I press play, I see my particles is working. Okay, this is very nice to use it. Also, and now I can see here with create by shelf, create the AutoDOP network. So if I go inside, don't find nothing here. But also in this case, I prefer create here my system. If I create, for example, the sphere, change the radius, change the topology, use the transform node, for move it, now I create the pop network. Inside the pop network I can connect to the first input. Here I have 4 inputs, is only input, okay, and 1 output. Inside, I jump inside, I see the source, first input, and automatically have here the source. The source is the scatter out the offset. What I mean? I mean the generation of my particles is a scatter, is a random on my surface. Also if I play, I see is growing with very random particles. Here I can use parameter value, so I can use the SOP or another kind, the DOP value, the object by DOP, or the first context input geometry. So he take the first input, come here. If I have another geometry, for example, my cycle path here and a path here, can I say take the second, okay. Here I can create the group for my source geometry, and also I can assign the attributes from, for example, the color. The bird is how is bird my geometry, how is burning, for example, X active or not active, for example 0, 0. My geometry is burning. Why is burning? Because constant active is 1. Its value is 1 is true, 0 is false. So if I have 0 on contrast, I don't see nothing. If I have 1 on impulse, I don't see nothing because the constant activation is 0. So if 1, I see. Important is the constant activation. The impulse count is the impulse parameter, how is work. Constant birth is how much particles, how many particles created per seconds. In Houdini, the time is the seconds, but on my timeline I see the frame. So this is 5,000 particles per rate. So every 24 frames, or if I have here from the parameters, I have my frame per seconds is 24. Have every 24 frames I have 5,000 particles created. Okay, if I have, for example, 1, I see 1 particles every 20 frame. Okay, probability emission is probability seed is how is growing in how is position is randomly. Life expenses is the life of my particles. The life of my particles is not 100 of my frame, but is 100 seconds. This is the seconds. So if I want 1 second, so is 24 frames, I press 1. and I see every particles is burning and die for 1 second. Okay. Also I can, if I uncheck the grid, I can don't set the grid, I can press the point for see my point or point number. I see my point number in my viewport. So now if I want to give the variation, the life variation, I can give the life variation from 0, also this is in the second, to another kind. More important, if you want only 12 frames for life of your particles, you can give 0.5, or you can divide your second 1 second, divide 2, and is you can see when I arrive to 12 my particles die. Okay, and see here 24. When is running, is burning, when arrive to 12, particles die. Is the minus is the division of your 1 second is divided for 2. Okay, this is the mathematic, is very basic mathematic. Or you can, for example, if you don't want 24 but you want 6, you can give 0.20, sorry, you can assign, you can delete the channel, okay, assign 0.25, and this is, you see, after 6, the 7 is die. Okay, but for now we can press 1. Also I have the attribute, I have the steam, and I have the built-in attributes. Also I have the velocity. Velocity is inert velocity is 1, but you can assign also another kind of velocity. But the question is, I have the velocity here, but my particles don't move, don't go away, don't go in around my viewport, is static on my object. This is because I don't have the node for velocity, or I can assign the velocity, stop it, assign the velocity and assign the variation. The velocity now I can pass, for example, 2, I can press play and I see my particles is go up. Okay, I can give the variation of 4 and I have more variation, and some is go down. Another way for create, for example, the velocity, use the VOP or the point inside the object level, but we can see in the next time. Now I want to show you another aspect very interesting of my particles. Of my particles is interaction with another object is immediately. What I mean, if I apply the merge node side my soap and the static object, and also I can move it, this is, and the gravity node go up and create, for example, the grid. Jump inside, swap, grid, okay, and velocity, I Okay, if I press play, okay, now it's not working. Because I need to add from the collision behaviors, add the hit collision. Can hide the don't working again because maybe I need to put here. No. Don't see my, okay, maybe you can use the ground. Okay, stop. Okay, don't change the color, but it's okay. However, it's okay. Okay, because maybe I have this. No. Maybe it stop it. Okay. Color it. Now you can see stop it, or I can die, or okay, now it's die because I don't change simulation in running. I can say the stick and we come back here. Okay, it's a stick, it's not bouncing. I can say the slide. Okay, slide is automatically take the geometry in and because it's the DOP network is working with all system is dynamic. This is very important. Houdini is very good for the work of Houdini is change more and all dynamics can work together also without from another category of it. Also inside Houdini have the sum solver is called multi-solver. The multi-solver is very powerful because you can use some tools. You can use, for example, for particles, also for the dynamic simulation like the rigid body. This is very important because maybe you don't become crazy for creating one effects. You can do with particles, but you don't know how to do with the same effect with the rigid body. Okay, don't worry. I can use the same tools of the particles for creating my simulation. And this is we can see in the next time also. However, you can see now how to use, for example, some aspect from the SOP inside the pop. For example, I can create a VOP. I have the point VOP. I can put here. And in the point VOP, if I open, I find a particular situation where is the geometry global VOP from the point with the whole parameter for the point, and here the geometry output with the parameter for the output for the points. Here I can use, for example, some effect, connect and go out. It's more similar to the wax. It's one interface, one base for the VEX. It's the first tools for create the best situation. For example, I can create the turbulence noise and I connect my turbulent noise. I can connect the position to position, and I can position to the position output, or for color maybe it's better. What is the turbulence noise? Turbulence noise is the kind of map you can find in all software. You can apply here and you can see viewport. You can find this kind of map. This kind of map is applied to my geometry from the position, or I can also from the color to position. Okay, but I prefer the position to position. Why? Because because I want to assign the position of my particles based on my color. Okay, now here I can change, for example, to 3D noise, or choose one noise, 1D noise. You can choose, for example, the original Perlin, the spar, or the alligator is another kind of noise. Okay, and you can change the frequency. Original Perlin, for example. The frequency, the offset, it's the size of our noise. Or, for example, the amplitude, roughness, and attenuation, and the turbulence. You can choose more kind of noise. And assign to the color. Now I have here the parameters is the color. In fact, if I press the middle mouse, I find 2 points. Attribute is one is the color, one is the position. So inside my DOP network, I can go in my source, and my source, from the source I can assign the attribute, and I find the attribute the color CD. So if I can, for example, assign more particles, you can see, and also I can change with D from keyboard, background, light or gray. Okay, you can see more particles is created. I can give more for C, created by the color. Okay, but I see, for example, some range, it's take the black. Okay, so this is the first step, where is my color is my particles created by the color of position, by the color of it. Also I can go in attributes and I can use inherence. For example, I bypass the gravity, so I see now is created. Okay, but I won't use the velocity from also the map of my turbulence noise. For make this, I can back here, and here I can add the noise from the velocity. Okay, I can assign the velocity. I can, for example, use the node called add or multiply. For example, the multiply, I can assign the first input. The first input is the turbulence noise. We can try with the turbulence noise. First input. The second input is the velocity. Okay, or maybe we can do with the first input is the velocity, the second is the turbulence noise, and assign it, multiply with in the velocity. So now I have this operator is working on my velocity. Come here. If I press play, inside my geometry, but I don't see my velocity. Why? Because I need to, I'm mapping my position. I'm mapping the position, also the velocity, and I say, for example, to my velocity, the black part is 0, and the white part is 1, and the middle part is 0.5. But I need another node for create the velocity attribute. For create the velocity attribute, I can use the point node. Point node. Inside the point node, I can work with the standard. The standard is apply from the point, the basic point, or on particles. I apply the velocity. Add the velocity, and here I have the new kind of script is at v.x is for velocity for the axis x, and now I can see what's happened. If I come back here and I press play, is nothing, because inside my I'm mapping, but I need from the point I send the value. For example, if I plus 2 from the x, and from the x it's that direction, what's it's happened? If I press play, I see I have a 2 from this direction, okay? And from that direction I don't have nothing, okay, because it's negative. So if I want from this direction, I can multiply, for example, 2 . Now it's not working very fine. Okay, 4. Okay, maybe it's not working. Strange. However, I can assign here another value, for example, multiply 2, multiply 4, or multiply 4 for x. Give a few variation. A little variation 3, 4, 2, okay. And when I press play, okay, maybe I'll also, because multiply don't work, we can use the add, and we can try with add. First input and second input, and we can the velocity, okay, and multiply we can bypass, So we can, I am sure, is not have any kind of interation. Okay. See what's happened. Okay, now it's working. You see my particles is go up, okay, in all direction. With the SOP inside, with the add is additional of this value from another this value and use the velocity. Okay, with multiply it's good for some reason, for create a few variation. Also you can, for example, promote the some parameters for have go up, because if you see here you don't have nothing, but you can use some parameters, some value for have up, but we can see in another time. Here now I can show you if you have the velocity and the gravity, obviously, but the velocity here I can put, for example, 4, I can give 2, I can okay, I can press play, see the effect. Okay, don't have the random situation, is more static. Okay, also I can use the noise for create the turbulence, for create the effect of variation. For create a variation inside, we can add some noise from the source to the solver and working here. For all node is working with the particles, is with the prefix of my name is with the pop. So if I press tab, write pop, maybe here pop, you can find here every single operator is working with my particles. Okay, also I find the pops in the voice of the pops, I find all pops is work in the particles. So if I, for example, create the pop force, and the pop force is very nice because inside I have the noise of my particles. I can give amplitude is 1 for activation. I press play, and the little types for see the effect only the force is disabled, bypass my point. Come here, and from here I can assign the velocity or no velocity because I have the gravity node. So here don't have the color, it's not important. If I press play, I see my particles go down. I can assign okay, this is the effect of my amplitude is 1, is a few wave here. Okay, if I put 0, I don't have effect. If I put 1, also the swirl size is the swirl, is the round of my effect. Okay, if I put, for example, 5 for see what's happened. With 5 we can see is more wave. With the scale I can change the scale of my swirl, and the impulse, the roughness, the amplitude, also the attenuation. Attenuation is 5, is very, see, is very strong. the impulse is the pulse is the pulse of length. If I put, for example, or 2.5, you can see it's more explosive. This is the good types. You can see the effect of your noise only on your line of your particles, and then you can apply on all your final effects. Okay. Also, I can use the grid for see the effects of my noise. You can see also here swirl sides is big or very small, and the scale is the dimension. Pulse, so how much there is roughness. Okay, dimension 1. A good types is create one node with the big turbulence and one with the small turbulence. You can see now the effect. Okay, this is maybe can be the small turbulence. You can create more rock, create very big sides. Okay, can also copy, paste here, and from this I can from this change the color maybe, so you can see. Okay, don't see me. Okay, small. Okay, now you can see what's happened. Okay, also I can assign, for example, the pop color for color of my particles, and the color is can random on the ramp. The ramp is stop it. Okay, it's very nice because you can understand when started the color by velocity or the color by edge or another kind of aspect. Okay, usually the color is by the normal edge. Okay, and I can change, for example, the blue, yellow, you can see. More important, for use the particles, you can use the expression. The expression for create the when is start and when is stopped. Okay, for example, I can go to my constant or activation, I can say FF dollar FF, sorry, we can write dollar FF minus 10 is working, okay. If I write or maybe dollar F, stop it, only dollar F, and the same for the constant. Is started only on from the frame number 10, okay. And I can say also EE minus 25 or 40. Dollar F 40. Inputs I can delete, okay. Start, stop it in 40. This is the little expression for start and stop our particles emitter. Is very good, is very nice for use this. Okay, now I want to talk about the Pyro effects. Pyro effects is a very good tools for creating simulation for smoke, fire, explosion, etc. Is the volumetric tools. Is the old tools you can find, for example, in some old Houdini is the fluid container. Fluid container is a pyro container, is smoke container, and the liquid container. You can create from here, or for example create by the shelf is PyroFX shelf. I can have the flame, the explosion, fireball, bill of smoke, etc, etc. Is another aspect more important is understand the concept of the voxel. What is the voxel? Voxel is the kind of we can call the size or the little description of inside the container of information. What I mean? Okay, we can start with the simple geometry with the sphere, for example. Inside my sphere, I can create, for example, the polygon. Hide the construction plane. And we can see for create the volume inside Houdini, we can use the three tools. One is the volume. And we can connect the volume here, and we can see is create the volume, but no, it's not create more. Okay. And another is create the ISO offset. And ISO offset is very old tools for create the volume from the polygon. Is create the volume by the create, for example, the fog volume. The ISO surface is the surface like the metabol is a polygon surface by the volume, or for example the SDF volume or the Theta mesh. But is very interesting is the fog volume. The fog volume is created by the division of the samples of my grid. What I mean, for example, I have the grid, okay, is very division grid. For example, this container is divided from this side from 10 division, and from this is another 10, and from this is another 10, and I have this shape. You can see here the shape of my from my sphere is not more good, is not we can hide another, okay, is not more accurate. If I, for example, part from 5 0, is more accurate. It is very good for create the volume. Another kind of tools we can create is VDB. VDB is very nice because you can see, for example, a little tab. Oops, from here maybe it's better. VDB is the tools created by DreamWorks, and is very good because can work very better inside Houdini, and you can create some little, for example, VDB from polygon, and we can connect it. Is very fast respect to the ISO offset, but in some case is a very good ISO offset. And you can create, for example, the polygon by the fog, or the distance by VDB create the surface, but the voxel size is 0.1. It is no more accurate, but if I put, for example, 0.5, you can see it's very more accurate and is very fast. And create, for example, the voxel by the sides from the voxel. But what is it, the voxel? We can see the voxel now. We can connect the VDB visual. Is it free? You can see now I have the solid box. This is the voxel. The voxel is this is the voxel of a round. Okay, here I have the information. The information is, for example, the velocity, the density, or temperature. You can find here some little information. More is small my voxel, more information, more accurate I can have from the volume. If, for example, I have here, for example, 2, you can see my box is very big, and now I have more information. If I have 1, I have 5 box, and the information is not very good. If I go down, I have more information, and can I create my sphere. More information, for example, if I put 0.1, keep one moment for create it. Okay, is created, and I have a lot of information, okay, inside my voxel, and this is a perfect shape of my sphere, and you can use this for create the perfect simulation. Okay, the same concept you can find inside the voxel of my container of my Pyro effects. I can, for example, delete this, or I can grab here and shake for disconnect all node, and we can put here from here, and maybe we can talk about it in the second moment. Here I have my sphere. Okay, I want to create very fast the tools, the simulation of Pyro from this object. For example, the billows of smoke. If I press select my geometry, or select my billow and select my geometry and press enter, billow of smoke, and we can see what's happened is create inside the sphere is create this node. This node is the create the density volume, and use the fluid smoke, use the fluid source for create the volume, the attribute, the merge node for that, and the output. Also create one node for render, and create the auto DOP network, Inside you can find the fluid, the source. You can find the resides container, because this is when you come on your timeline and scroll, you see it's growing, but you see also the volume is dynamic and is change. The size is dynamic change frame by frame. And the Pyro is the smoke object, because I created smoke, but I create another kind, I find another kind of object, and this is, it's connected to Pyro solver. Pyro solver is one solver for Pyro, and you can find inside all attributes for custom your shape. For example, in simulation, you find this simulation, the combustion, you find the shape, you find the relationship, and the advanced. And in Pyro we can find some option, for example, for see some aspect like the density, like the fuel. In this case, fuel is not exist because it's not have the fuel. The divergence, the velocity. If you want, we can show the velocity. Okay. Obviously, the blue is the low velocity and the red is the high velocity. Let's see this effect. We can also multi-field, we can see all part, but more important, we can see the resolution. Here we have some line is represent the resolution. Okay. The resolution is in voxel. In fact, we can see the effect of voxel. Here we have the same effect of the sphere in I create before with the square. For have more details, we can go in the Pyro and we can go to change the division. If I give, for example, I have 0.5, I see is change my quality, and see it's more slow, but I see it's more definition on my smoke. And more important is in viewport you can't understand very well because I don't have any kind of light, so I can see more details. But if for example, can put here, go up, I can create the light node, the light, and inside the light I can choose, for example, grid, and I can move it. Up, and can I rotate it? Okay, we can see enable. Okay, if I move it, now I see better the effect of my light. Also I can in the light, for example, I have the low intensity. Okay, I see it's the effect of my light. Also I can inside in the sphere object. Okay, the smoke density, can I assign 2, for example? Can I see some more density so I can see more details? Okay, on my simulation. Okay, this is only visible, and this is created by voxel. So more voxels, more details, more obviously huge for time for calculating my simulation. But this is very important. This is nice. Understand what's the voxel. Voxel is also the resolution, but is the properties like the velocity. In fact, if we go in Pyro sim, in my voxel I can have all of this kind of information. For example, density, if you are request, for example, density, temperature, fuel, divergence, burn, heat, and velocity. We can show the velocity, we can see the collision, we can see if this exist, or for example only the velocity, etc. Obviously in velocity I can go to velocity and I can choose, for example, the place orientation. I can change the orientation of my plane for understand better, and so on. And I can set in some value of my smoke, or I can set in here from the source. For example, from the source I can setting the temperature, the noise, the shape, etc. I can set in more of this. Okay, but the Pyro effects is very nice also because it's working with the particles, because I can drive the particles with the smoke, and the vice versa, or obviously I can drive smoke by particle, and I can see also the interaction with the rigid body simulation. This is very nice effect. In fact, if for example I can see how to drive, for example, my particles with the Pyro, I can, for example, go here, and the best way for create the simulation is created by apply from here. What I mean, I can have my sphere. In my sphere I apply the mountain. For now I can come back here, and I disconnect my volume for one moment. I have my volume, and I can create a box. My box I have here, change the dimension, cookie, and now I can create the pop network, and inside pop network I can say, can use, for example, the points, add the velocity, and multiply velocity, or I can add the normal. Okay, and from the velocity use the normal for velocity. Okay, pop network, sign by scatter is not important. Okay, is only the sample attribute velocity, use the velocity. You can see, okay, it's boom, but we can add the constant activation, select frame, can create the range, for example, and minus can use FF or dollar. Okay, this is my simulation. Okay, by particles. I can assign more particles. Boom. Okay. And can I drive my simulation of my smoke with this particle? For do that, I go to my sphere and can connect all this part to my sphere. And more important, inside the volume, I can use the stamp point. Now, if I come back here, I see my simulation is working by the particles. It's driven by the particles. Okay. Obviously, in this case now I have the limit of my boundary, the box of my container. So my container is growing, but have the fixed dimension. The fixed dimension is from here. I have these sides of my container, maximum size for my container. What I mean, if I disable, for example, the resides, okay, my container, if I come back from frame 1, My container is for 10 and for 8, for example, and 8, and is the position of the center, for example, is 4. You can see is a change. Maybe we can up 1, go down a few down. Okay. The dimension is this, is not change, is not variation. And when I arrive to the limit of my variation, is arrive here and stop it. So my simulation, if I press play, for example, you can see what's happened. Maybe I can, because it's a few slow simulation, I can change the size of my voxel. So 0.5, 1.5. So it's so fast, and I can show you very fast the situation. Okay, it's low res, but it's only for understand what's happened. Is arrive here and stop it here because it's arrived to the end of my sim. I can, for example, change also the kind of interaction of my smoke with the side of my container. Okay, I see also, but it's okay because it's derived with my particles, and so it's okay. But when I arrive here, is stopped here and is cutting here the edge. But you can, for example, go in. We can also inside the Pyro, we have the initial data, and we can see here. We can, for example, close and bound this and change, for example, the axis where it's close. And what's happened now, if I press play, you can see my simulation is working, and when I arrive here is bouncing or is closed. You can see what's happened. It's closed, so it's bouncing and it's go around. Okay, but you can open in another direction also, and we can also open it. Okay. So in some case it's very good, for example, create the simulation using another kind of aspect for create the boundaries, but we can see in next time. Very interesting, it's also the interaction with our rigid body simulation. In fact, we can create the rigid body sim. We can go up, for example, and we can create here, can create one box, another box, create the transformation node, okay, and now I cover this with the null object, and I call this out box, change the color. Okay, and here in my Pyro sim, it's the Pyro sim, it's the AutoDop network, so I can create more aspect here, for example, the merge node, I have my sim is here. I grab and put here. Also I can, no, I don't want to create the resides for now. I can create the rigid body, the RBD object. I can create the bullet, can connect to my merge node and put open up, and also I can create the ground plane. On the ground plane, connect here and put in the first. Okay, and more important, my ground, I going back here, for example. Okay, so we can see the interaction with my rigid body, with my ground to my smoke, and with particles, and also with my box. I can select my box. Need to select my box. It's inside my sphere out box. Okay. And if I press play, see my simulation. I see he don't have more interaction. Yes, I have a little interaction because I need to change the solver. In fact, inside my Pyro advanced, I can go to the projection. I don't use the projection method multigrid, but PCG is another kind of the projection. And I change also the feedback. I find the collision. In collision, for example, assign the same value I can find in my density of my box, and I think by default is 1000. Okay, and I see what's happened now. See here the connection, the relation is go up. You can find the simulation. Okay, see here simulation. Also see how is the effect of the gas to my rigid body. Okay, but maybe you can see better if I active the grid of velocity. You can see here it's working, and how it's changed in the time with the position and interaction of my box with my volume. Okay, and we can see the interaction of my find the velocity and change the velocity here, change the velocity here, and change the direction. This is a simple example for see the interaction with the rigid body with my fluid, okay, with the smoke fluid. And another aspect more important of simulation, this is a kind of simulation, this is basic simulation of the voxel. So the fluid, it's the same you can find for water, for example. What I mean, if I create a new scene. And I can create, for example, one container from particle fluid. I have a flip container. I can press Ctrl and Alt, hold Alt and press on my flip tank. I can create my container. This container is container with the particles, with the fluid, and the concept of the particles plus the voxel is flip fluid. Okay, and you can see also here the fluid interior, fluid tank, and fluid initial. Fluid initial is the initial state and is connected with another with the state, the basic state. In Autodop network you can find here also the solver for fluid, for flip fluid. So here I have the resolution of my voxel is the particle separation. Particle separation is 2.5, is 0.25, and I can change to 0.1 and see it's change the resolution, the accuracy of my scene. Also the grayscale, the particles, the width, the physics is all value is very near to another kind of fluid. However, if I have, for example, the object here, I can create another geometry node, can create the box, can create transform node, I can move up, create a null object, and inside the Autodop network I can create RBD object bullet solver, I can assign and I see what's happening if I press play. I have the interaction of my fluid with my geometry. Okay, now it's go down, but the concept is same information is arrive and edit my particles, and this information is created by voxel. Okay, by the voxel, so I have the information of velocity, of the density, of the interaction with my box is the same of my fluid, of my container by my Pyro, for example. Also I can assign here the density more high. See, for example, is change also the iteration with my box. Okay. Okay, this is very basic for started with the tutorial, so I can now start with the modeling of my iceberg.